Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all having a great morning already. Welcome to this Showpiece class and demo we're going to do for you today. I hope you've enjoyed the other demos that we've done through the week with Julie and Claire. And remember, they've got another one tomorrow, which is on trends. So, look out for that one. Okay. So today, we're just going to run through what we're going to do. So I'm going to go through different elements for making showpieces. So I'm going to go through 3 different bases, 3 different structural pieces, and 3 different flowers. And then we're going to build them all together to make 3 separate showpieces. So we're going to start with the bases first. Okay. So for one of the bases, we're going to use a block of chocolate. Now, I'm trying to use equipment that you might have at college, or you might even have at home as well. So I'm not trying to use too much expensive equipment, expensive molds. I'm trying to use very classic molds and things that you might have already. So for one of our bases, all I'm going to use is a metal cake ring. So you could use a cake tin as well with obviously a solid bottom. That's no problem. With that one though, I would line it more as well. So line the outsides with sort of acetate and do a line just as you do a normal batter. But for these rings, it's quite simple. I'm just using a little piece of acetate there. And I can literally pour in my chocolate to actually get to the depth I need. It doesn't leak out the sides. You haven't got to be too worried about that because this is quite weighty. If you do find it's quite light, then you might need to just hold it down or stick it down. If it does start leaking around the sides, we're going to use a lot of this cool spray. So you might need to spray. Just if you're doing larger pieces, like a lot bigger in the ring, I would always suggest to have your tempered chocolate, and then I would put in loads of sort of callets. Okay, so actually that will help it set a lot better and a lot quicker as well. But something this small, all we've used is just literally tempered chocolate. And you can see we've got sort of a bit of a rough base there, but then we've got a nice smooth side. So that side's the side we're going to use, and that side we're going to smooth off. So just to show you smoothing off, to make it, if it's a little bit warped, I'm just going to use a hot plate. And just turn this on to just get this a little bit warm. So if you have got a warped bottom and it doesn't sit very well, it's a bit wonky, then obviously we can heat it. Now, if you don't have a hot plate like this, this is just a normal food hot plate. You can put a metal tray in the oven, or like a piece of marble or something like that, like one of those marble chopping boards. You put them in the oven as well. Just ensure that you don't have a tray that's really thin, and because it will warp in the oven, and then you'll get obviously wonky as well. So this heats up quite quickly. So it's just heated there. So the top piece is going to put it upside down with it, and that's just going to take off, still heating up a little bit, and that just takes off a bit of the base. Now, I'm not going to be worried too much today, but when we do competition work, I would use a level on the top of this so I can get it nice and level. Obviously, I'd make sure that my table's level and this is level as well. But as you can see here, I've melted it all the way around. So it's nice and flat all the way around. But don't worry about this bit in the middle. It doesn't have to be completely melted all the way across unless you need to make it nice and flat. But I can see where I've melted it now. It's perfect. Okay, so I would leave that sort of upside like this and then let that dry, and then you can turn it over and you can start to carve. So for this one, we're going to carve it a bit like a wood grain effect. Let's just move this that way. So you can use different tools for this. I've already started it off, as you can see on here. Okay, so I'm just obviously carving some lines. So we got sort of clay carving tools that you can use, or you can use just like a paring knife to do. Be careful with a paring knife because obviously, with the angle we're going to carve it, you've got to make sure that your other fingers are out the way. I always do it on a slight angle so you get more of a grip to that. Take a big chunk out here and there. And then using these little tools we can carve. And I'm going to go just sort of on a curvy edge. Even there you can take a big chunk out. Wood's not always perfect. Let's do another bit over here. Here I've made it sort of like quite deep so it looks like a knot in the wood. But just remember, obviously we're using a circle here, that you've got to come off as well. So make sure you come down on the top, or just gouge out some bits. You're going to leave a little bit there, obviously, because the wood grain's going this way, but you can take a little bit out. Be careful, like nice, simple way. Good morning, everybody.
We've got lots of people from Northern Ireland, Ireland.
Oh my gosh.
All over the UK.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've had a good week and learned lots. Okay, so that's now ready pretty much. I mean, you can spend a lot of time, and that's with this Showpiece stuff. You can spend a lot of time, what I'm going to show you, but we haven't got that much time today, so we're just going to go through it, but I explain areas where you can spend a bit more time on it to make it a little bit more shiny or get a bit more detail in there as well. So once we got this, I prefer to use the heat of my hands. I know some people have really cold hands, but literally all I do is now just give it a little smooth off. So I'm taking it down slightly, and then you start to see just sort of like almost lighter lines. So we're taking away that harshness of that where I've cut it, if you see, and you can make it a little bit more smoother, and getting into that little knot there, and that one over there, and just spending a bit of time. Now, what you find is when you've done this, it might sort of have a bit of a bloom on it, because obviously with the heat of your hands and the way you're rubbing it, you're going to create, a bit of blooming on that surface of that chocolate. So I'll show you how you can sort of finish that up later. Or if it does bloom slightly, you can just smooth it again, and then sometimes it seems to work out okay as well. If you find that you haven't got hot hands, what you can do is take a tiny bit of and then just give it a good smooth over, and that gives you that little bit of heat to actually get down into those grains. So here, if you want to, you can use gloves, but I prefer to use, the heat of my hands, like I said, but really get in there and give it a good smooth off. I try and do it so I sort of fill up that gap where I've cut, but I like it because it's very natural looking, this as well. So you can spend a bit more time on this, getting it a little bit more finer. You can go a little bit more closer with the grooves and things like that. And sometimes what I've done is instead of dark chocolate on with the temper to smooth it in, I put some milk chocolate in, so you get more of a sort of a look as well. You can do that way, or you want to put white in, and your lines will come out a little bit more, prominent. But I quite like it like this, where it's very rough. And you can just smooth it over, and you see there we've got your nice sort of wood
Mark,
grain.
I'm just going to come and adjust the top camera. So
okay.
And also, I move a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, just getting this.
Maybe not. Have you got something that's not dark?
No. I'll angle it on the light.
Okay.
Okay, trying to get the light right for you guys.
That's good. That's good.
So you can see it.
Yeah.
So I am using obviously a lot of chocolate colours today as well. I've got a screen here so I can see exactly what you're seeing as well. So I'll try and get it in the right angle. So if you see me looking this side, so don't worry, I am concentrating. Okay, trying to anyway. Okay, so we're going to leave that now. So that's our first base. We're going to come back to that, like I said. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's pop that in there. Let's do this. Okay, so our second one. So we're going to do like a bit, like a piece of granite, a piece of marble, just like what we've got here. Okay. So all I've done, if you see in here, is lots of callets of the Calabo chocolate. So I've got some dark callets, I've got some white, and I've got some of the lovely gold callets in there as well. Now, it doesn't look very much like a callet because all I've done is put them through a Thermomix or a Robocube blender and just chop them up a bit so they don't look like the callets. They look more like little rocks, okay? Now, when you do that, you tend to get a lot of little flecks as well. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a big sieve here, and we're just going to literally sieve out those very small bits. Okay, you can see the little bits there. Because all you want is those nice rocks. And I'll put that back into there. Then we need to obviously make it into actual, almost like cement. So we need to add a solution to this. Now, we can add just like a coloured cocoa butter, which is fine. So I could add a brown cocoa butter. I could mix cocoa butter and chocolate as well. So you could do 50-50 of that. So that makes it a little bit cheaper without using purely cocoa butter. But I'm going to use cocoa powder today. Okay, so I've got some cocoa powder here. Which I'm going to pop into this little bowl. And then I'm going to add some melted cocoa butter. So if you didn't want to use loads of dark chocolate, you didn't want to use, coloured cocoa butter, you can just use cocoa powder to give you that colour. But if you want to make more of a different coloured marble, then use a different. So you could have cocoa butter, and then you could add a dust colour, or you can use a coloured cocoa butter, pre-bought one, or you can make it with the power flowers, which I'm going to show you later how to use those as well.
Do you work to a specific ratio?
I knew someone was going to ask that.
Of course you do, Mark.
Of course I do. Of course I do. No, I don't. It's what you need to make sure is that this is quite wet, okay, quite sticky, this one, okay. You don't want it very dry because you want to make sure when you pack it into the mold, it doesn't have any gaps around there, okay. So I make sure I have plenty of this, but now it's ready. I'll show you. So I can put in a little bit first. And then I'll just get a spatula.
Is your cocoa butter tempered as well, Mark?
I've got it at about 30 degrees, 32 degrees. So you've got to be fairly quick with this because obviously we've got it at the right temperature because what's going to happen is it's going to stick to that chocolate and it's going to start setting straight away. So there you go. You want a sort of a sloppy mess. Okay. Let's just get rid of these. And then I've got my mold here. And then all I'm going to do is, so I've got no lining of this. I've got nothing in here. And then you can just pack it up, make your disc. You can probably get 2 out of this anyway. That's quite a lot there. And then just sort of level it, just move it around a little bit because you want to get rid of any of the air bubbles, that type of thing. And then don't worry about what it looks like at the moment. Just give it a little shake. You can see it's leaking out a bit, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, you can see, just let that set. It will set fairly quickly because the cocoa butter is the right temperature and the chocolate is obviously cool anyway, so it's just going to literally set. Okay, so we can pop that up here. What happens when it comes out, you've got this big block of chocolate. It's all nice and set, okay? But now you need to smooth this all off so we can get down to the real, nice design of it. So we're going to go back to the hot plate. I'll just turn this on. Got a little tray under here because you need to make sure you've got a tray that you can scrape into because it's going to be very wet because you've got a lot of cocoa butter in there. And what I'm going to do is do it like that.
It's quite nice, Mark, using the different coloured chocolates as well in there, isn't it? So
Yeah, so you
get
could colour. Yeah, the ruby chocolate, or you could colour some white chocolate a different colour as well. So marble comes in all different colours. There's some really, funny pink ones and blue ones and different green ones. So yeah, have a little play around with different colours as well. It's really nice as well. This is like a little, if you do a little bit thinner, you could do it like a plate. So you could put like petit fours on as well. Same with the wood one and same with the other one I'm going to make. So they all make really nice plates as well. So what I'm going to do is just take off the bottom, just make that a little bit flatter. You have to watch these hot plates because sometimes they obviously get really, really hot. So sometimes I turn it on and off, so I just have a little bit of heat there because they don't have a dial on there or anything. Okay, so you can see I'm starting to come down on that. With this, you can get rid of this all the time. I've got a little tray over the side here, so I can just pop it into that. Now that top bit is going to be my bottom, so I haven't got to worry too much about this. It's more the top I need to sort of look at now. So I'm going to just give this a heat up. And then you can check it anytime. So come bring it off. And then all you're going to do is scrape it. And then you can see more of that design. Okay. So yeah, if you had lots of colors in this, it's going to look amazing when you've cut off like that. Okay. So when you've done that, if you're happy with that, then that's fine. If not, then you've got to obviously do the sides as well. Now, if it was a square you were doing, it's really easy because you could just go like that, what we've been doing with the top and the bottom. But you can't go like that with the round disc. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but I tend to do it like this. So I literally just roll it on the hot plate and it starts to melt the edges down and you'll get to the same look as you did the top. Okay, I'm not going to do this because it does take a little bit of time. But as always, we have one already made up. So just keep doing that. And then if you've got quite a lot of cocoa butter, it's quite wet, then just scrape it off. Okay, and then just look at it. If you need a bit more, you can just keep going. Like so. Could be here for a while, but we're not going to go too much. Okay, so then that's literally just keep scraping and you're done. Just get rid of this. Give this a quick wipe off. So make sure you leave it a little bit of time. Sometimes what I do as well is once it has set the piece of granite or piece of marble, then I sometimes give it a little scrape with a chocolate scraper or with a palette knife, just to take off a little bit of the surface there. Okay, so you can see got that nice finish, got the nice sides there now as well. See, that one's the bottom, it's got a bit of a hole in there, but I'm not too worried about that because it's the top, obviously, I want. But if you find that you want to smooth it off and you scrape it and you see that where you've got the white chocolate, it's gone a bit dark, then you can always, like I just said, you can take a scraper and you can just, or a palette knife, and just scrape the surface away. And that just gives you that more definition there of that.
We're laughing here, Mark, because somebody said they like making a mess. And I said, so does Mark.
My name here is Messy Mark, but I call it a creative mess. I'm very creative. Okay. Okay, so there you go. So they've got a lovely marble then. There, we can use it as a little plate, like I said, and we're going to use it as our base for our showpiece as well. But you can obviously do this in lots of different molds, some silicone molds, things like that as well. Let's come back to that. So the next one we're going to do that in a silicone mold. So a little bit like I mentioned. So if you wanted to, you could use one of these silicone molds. This is like an entremet mold. It's a 2-part one, but it's almost like a pillow. So I could use this. I could use another entremet mold. I like using the entremet molds for Showpiece works. You can get some really nice designs now. But the way I'm going to do this one, you could just do it as a ring as well, just a metal ring. You don't have to use the silicone if you don't have it. So all I do is literally take my silicone mold and just fill it with chocolate. Again, we can just set it as a whole solid piece. Again, like I said, if you've got a larger one, you might need to fold in some chocolate, some solid chocolate pistils in with your melted tempered chocolate, and then you can put it in, and that makes it set a little bit easier, a bit quicker, and also it's not so untempered in the middle because it doesn't take too much time to set, okay? So what we end up with is a solid piece of chocolate like this, okay? So we can take this all out, and then you see you've got a nice mold there of your pillow. Okay, so you see it's nice and shiny. We've got a little bit of, obviously, where the join was there, and I've got a little bit at the bottom there as well. So quite easy, we can just tidy this up. We can use a little bit of the hot plate. It's a little bit hot. We can level this off again to where you need it. And then you can just grab a little knife. And then you can just scrape down the seam. Okay, and then you can, if you've got any little gaps or little holes, sometimes you get little holes. Again, I'm going to use my fingers and the palms of my hands to really smooth that down. So it's really nice and smooth. And you have a really nice finish. So take a bit of time. It's always the under, the paint. We're going to paint this. We're going to put some black cocoa butter on. But if you've got imperfections on this now, then you're going to see them through the final piece. Okay, so make give it a little bit more time than normal to make this really nice and smooth. And like here, fill up any little holes with a little bit of tempered chocolate. Make it as smooth as possible. I'm just going to do that side for now, guys. Okay, so just finally, I know it came out nice and shiny, and I put all my hands over it now, so it's very matte. But we're going to obviously get rid of that color now. So I'm also going to do some little feet for this as well, because it's really good for showpieces, because you might need to pick it up out of the way, you might need to move it. So it's good if it's got a little bit of like a plinth underneath it. Okay, so again, all I've used is a silicone mold. So you could use anything like these silicone molds to make little feet. I've got another little sort of domed one, pillow one here, which you need 4 of those that you can use. I can also use things like this, like little tubs. As long as you've got 4 of them, it will come out. No, it won't. This one will come out. There you go. So even just a little tub like that. You're not going to see it because it's going to be underneath, but it just gives you that lifting part. So if you want to lift your showpiece, if you try to lift it like this, you're obviously going to touch all the thing you're going to decorate. So if it's underneath, like say if I got these 4 like this, then you've got that nice little platform where you can now just pick it up from underneath, and any fingerprints, any of that's going to be underneath, so you're not going to see them. Okay. So again, I would smooth them off, and I'm going to do a little bit of cocoa buttering now. So this is a little bit messy. So just grab a piece of greaseproof paper and some black cocoa butter. So you can do different colours. It doesn't matter. Black's quite good though, because it does reflect the light quite well. Okay. So I've got my cocoa butter. This one's a little bit warmer. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of cool it down. But while I'm brushing on its cooling down as well. So you're just going to literally brush this. I'm only going to do half, guys. But what you're going to do is you're going to do probably about 4 or 5 layers on that. So let that dry. But when it is sort of drying, I'm just going to put a glove on because you've got a lot of sort of brush marks there, and we don't really want to have those. So while it's sort of cooling down and starting to set, just smooth all that out in between the layers, okay? And you'll see it'll start to go to more of a matte sort of finish. You see where it's just drying here. Okay, it's a little bit wet here still, but once it's dry, and then you can literally then do another bit and just build it up. Now, once you've built this up and it's had about 4 layers, 5 layers, I know some people for competition work, they go even more with that layer-wise. Just leave it, I would leave it overnight. It's quite good if you leave it overnight, just so that the cocoa butter could crystallize quite well. You will still see it's quite matte, but then I'm going to show you later how we finish that off as well. Actually, I'll show you now because they're all good to go. So, get rid of this. Things like this, guys, don't ever waste it. I just fold it up and then I can peel that off and then I can remelt it again because there's quite a lot of cocoa butter on there. You don't want to waste it. So I'll just pop that on there. Okay, so again, we need, can someone just give me a little bit of ice, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I've done one here already pre-done, and I've got my 4 little feet to go on as well. So you'll see it's quite dull at the moment, okay, but we're going to shine this up. This is at about 5 coats. I haven't concentrated too much on the bottom, but just concentrate on the sides and on the top. So what I've got is some cold water here. We're just going to get some ice, and then I've got just a single like J cloth. So we need to make this really, really cold and nice and wet as well. Wait for this. And some people, they will spend hours and hours on, it's almost like French polishing, buffing this up and making it really shiny, shiny, shiny. You can spend a long time doing this as well, but it needs to be ice cold. We've got water, okay, thank you. So, pop in some ice. Get it really nice and cold. And then just nice and lightly, we're going to just rub this. Okay, so make sure that's nice and cold first. Just drain it off a little bit, and then you can start polishing. Quite far away. If we do a top down, Claire, can they see the difference in the how it's changing? Not really, but I angle it in the. Oh, there you go. If I get it in the light there, you can see. Look, there you go. See how shiny that is on half of it and not on the other. So, like I said, just keep going.
We have a question mark.
Yes.
Why ice cold?
Well, if it's warm water or just cold water, you're not sort of, if it will start to peel off too much of the cocoa butter, okay, ice cold water is setting it and it's cooling it, the cocoa butter, a lot more and just making it shinier. Yeah. And
also, what brand of cocoa butter do you use?
So I use IBC cocoa butters because that's part of our company, part of Calavo. So they're IBC colours.
And they're good.
And I also use the Power Flowers, and that's Mona Lisa as well. So you can see you can spend a long, long time in getting this really shiny. Okay. So make sure obviously you do the edges.
People spend hours doing this, don't they?
Absolutely hours. I mean, Yeah, Barry will know. Barry's here. Barry Johnson was the last chocolate master. He knows all about showpieces as well and how long it takes. But it amazes me with, with the buffing, and you get some people do very, very fine detail and they've got it shiny just like this, and how they rub that. It must be very, very small J-cloths with very small hands just to get them nice and shiny. But yeah, not too bad. I mean, that one has rested quite well, but you can get it shinier and shinier than that as well, okay? So let's pop that back. We'll come back to that one in a bit. Let's get rid of that.
Can you rub it too much, Mark?
You can. If you rub it too much, you're going to take off too much of the cocoa butter as well. So yeah, just be careful how much you rub it. That's why I'm just rubbing it sort of like light to medium, okay, not too like, because you can come down. No, but what you can do is some people do like another sort of like bark effect. So they'll build up the color. So they do say a couple of different dark colors, a couple of light colors. And then what they do is they build one after the other. So you remember when I said about doing 4 coats, they'll do one color, then another color, then another color, then another color. And then they might do that again and build it up in different colors. And then what you can do is you can go a bit harder on that. When you rub it, you can come down the layers and you sort of get that sort of more sort of, what would you call it?
Like a
natural wood grain sort of effect in a sense. That's a really nice one. So you get that more sort of shiny to that as well. So yeah, have a little play around with that as well. All right. So that's the 3 bases that we're going to do for the showpiece. So now we're going to go on to more of the sort of structural pieces. Showpieces always need a bit of height to it, okay? So we're going to start with both. So the first one is a very simple one, and it's very similar to what I've just done. So we all have a lot of Easter egg molds, and hopefully you've got sort of different sizes as well. So all I've done is just put some tempered chocolate into this mold, but just half filled it. So you get more of these sort of like flatter egg pieces, okay? And we're going to make it sort of like a little pebble. So I'm going to bring back the hot plate. Wrongly. We're just going to stick these 2 halves together.
Another good question here, Mark. Can you not use white chocolate to make the bases?
Absolutely. You can use white chocolate, you can use milk chocolate, you can use ruby chocolate, you can use gold chocolate. Any chocolate, any Calabo chocolate you can use.
What would be the disadvantage of using white chocolate?
For which, any method?
Well, is it softer?
It can be a little bit softer, so you've got to sort of like take that into consideration, of the structure of your piece, because if it's going to be very heavy on the top and you've got something with those little legs on and it's very thin, then it obviously could break as well with the white chocolate. So dark and milky are probably your better ones to sort of look at. And it's really nice with showpieces to sort of have that more natural color, that darker color as well. But obviously people do go more lighter as well. So yeah. And you've got to be careful with white, because if you're working, with a white base and then you've got, a dark piece on the top, then, things can fall on it, things can sort of mark it a lot easier. And it's more difficult to sort of rub out because of the colors, the other colors. So.
I think whenever we see them do it on the bake-off with white chocolate.
Yeah.
I'm always worried because it doesn't set as hard and it doesn't give as much structure.
Especially if you haven't tempered it right.
Yeah.
If you haven't tempered it right, you don't want to do a showpiece of stuff that's not tempered. If it's not tempered, it's going to break, because you have the blooming sort of like, especially in a thick piece, it's almost like a bark effect that goes through, but it's very weak. So again, you put a lot of structure and it's just going to crack as well. So that's why I mentioned, if you're going to do bigger pieces, put some callets in there to actually hold it and make it firmer, and it will set quicker, because you've got your liquid chocolate, you've got your callets going into it, so you can make almost like a solution, like a cement, and then pack it in as well. So I've just taken off some of this So make it nice and flat. And then we're going to stick these together. The reason I'm doing them solid is because I'm using it for a structure for my showpiece. If I wasn't using it as a structure, I could do them hollow and do sort of the same thing. But if you start piling them up, which I'm going to do, pile one on top of each other, then the weight could obviously break the eggs inside because of the thickness. Okay, so that's why I'm doing them sort of solid. So let me just clean this off for a sec. A little cleaning table on there.
You're not Messy Mark anymore.
It's all done. Get a hiding mess. Clean as you go. When do you ever see, this is what I say, when do you ever see a clean artist's studio? You don't, because they're artists.
Is that right?
That's right. Okay, so now that's stuck together, you see it's nice, almost like a pebble now. Okay, so again, I'd work a bit of on that edge there, you know, make it nice and clean, because you don't want to see that it's obviously two parts of an egg mold stuck together. So I'm just using my hands. Again, if you've got a little knife handy or a little palette knife, you might need to give it a little scrape on the edge and then smooth it down. Like here, I've got a little gap there on that piece there. So obviously it's like a little mouth, doesn't it? And then I can sort of fill that up with a bit of chocolate. Just like that. So just coat it, do it a little bit sort of higher, let that sort of set, and then come back to that and smooth it off. And then that will fill that in. But smooth that all down like so. So then we're just going to make different sizes of that. So you see I've got another one here. And this one just needs a bit of smoothing because I've done all the edges, I've smoothed it all out. But because my fingerprints are on it, and now it's set, I can now smooth that better on that surface there, okay? And then keep going. So what I've done is I've built sort of a stack of about 8 or 9 of these, and I've done them with all different sizes of egg molds. So I guess get rid of those two. And just wash my hands. And it's really good because you can angle them lots of different ways. So I've already stuck these, but I'm going to show you how you can stick them. I've stuck them and I've given them a polish as well. So you can see there, I've got a nice stack of obviously larger ones coming down. So to stick things like this, what I'm going to do is use a little bit of tempered chocolate and then a little bit of freeze spray and a little bit of heat as well. So normally I wouldn't do it in 2 halves like this. I'd build from the bottom. I would make one little stack like this. I'd let the chocolate crystallize in between the layers, and then I would continue. Don't do the whole thing in one go, because you might find it's going to still be sort of soft and it will fall over. Okay, but you can see here I've given this a little bit of a different angle as well. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of dark chocolate. Just a tiny bit in a little piping bag.
Another good question here, Mark.
Yes.
Although I don't know whether you can say, but who is your favourite chocolatier and who inspires you?
These two don't inspire me at all. Ginny Sharp and Clayton. Do I get paid right now?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't really have a favourite person. I like loads of people. I think everybody has really good techniques in different areas. And I think, you know, I like everybody really. So I look a lot on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. And, you know, there's so much inspiration you can find on there from different people. And I think everybody has their own techniques for different things. I have my techniques for doing this, but you might be saying, oh, I've seen it a different way before that. That's great. You know, learn all those different ways of doing something and then decide which way you think is the way that you want to continue with. And then hopefully you'll pass that on to the next person as well. So, yeah.
But you get inspired from other areas, don't you? Like pottery and things like that?
Yeah, so yeah, it's not just people that do chocolate work or patisserie work. I look at, I've done a lot of pottery before. So, you know, a lot of clay work on the wheels and hand pottery, you know, looking at Instagram sites for that because it looks very similar and you can do similar stuff with chocolate in that sense as well. A lot of things like fashion, textures, wallpapers, the DIY shops. I love going in there and you can find lots of different molds as well, which are everywhere is good. So I'm going to give this a little bit of heat. Okay, I'd normally do all of this before I paint it, but I've already sort of painted it with the chocolate. We'd go on a little bit with a little bit of dark chocolate, and then I'll just give it a little bit of heat like that. I'm just going to turn it around to myself, and I didn't have my freeze spray ready, and now I do. So then I can just line this up. And then I can give it. So the freeze spray will set it in the place you need it. But I always say to people, remember, when you freeze chocolate, it goes back to being slightly wet before it fully sets again. So something like that, I always sort of like stay like this just for a couple of minutes, because if it goes back from being frozen and it starts going back to room temperature, and then it can start moving. Okay, so that's why sometimes things fall off as well.
Why did you heat both sides of that?
So solid temper chocolate, and I just put chocolate, wet temper chocolate in the middle, sticking together. It's like that. Okay, it will stick. But for a showpiece, any movement, and you'll see it's got that surface, it can shear off. So what I do is untemper both sides, put temper chocolate in the middle, and it's like that. It takes a little bit longer to dry, but it's going to lock it in a lot stronger. So that's why I untemper those sides. Okay. So that's now good. Obviously, we've got a bit of dark chocolate around here, but you know, I'm not doing chocolate masters.
I've got another question, Mark. So have you got any advice for people with hot hands as to how to avoid fingerprints and things like that?
Okay, so I have the hottest hands ever. Okay, I've managed to be a pastry chef through my career, so I've learned how to use my hands. So when I grab things, you know, I'm not like grabbing them like this. I'm grabbing them very delicate with the tips of my fingers. You know, I've learned to, when I lift pastry up, it's always the tips. I don't use my palms because I have very hot hands, so everything melts. So just learning how to lift things up and sort of getting under them like this, and sometimes wearing gloves so that can heat up even more. You know, you can stick your hands in the fridge for a bit. It doesn't really work that well. But yeah, it's learning how to use your hands to obviously how to build things. But you'll see when I build the flowers, you know, it's about how you hold them and how long you hold them for as well. You know, you've got to be fairly quick. I have to be very quick because my hands are so warm. Okay, it will come. It will come. Okay, so the next bit we're going to do is for the wood grain effect. We're going to do some wood sort of like structural pieces. So this is just an acrylic tube. So this is, I got this from eBay, but you can get like from the DIY shop, plumbing pipes. Just remember though, to make sure that it's nice and sturdy, because sometimes those plumbing pipes, they sort of bend. And if you fill them with chocolate, it's very difficult to push them out again. I have in the past bought tubes like that, and then I've got a piece of wood, a nice thick piece of wood at the side, and I've taped it around so it becomes a lot more structured and a lot straighter, and then you can use that. So what you're going to do is I've got a piece of greaseproof cling film, folded it over about 4 times, and we're going to close up one of the ends like so. And then we're going to just tape up the end at the same time. So a little bit around there with some tape. And then I want to show you how to fill this because it's a little bit of a challenge filling it. So I'm going to grab a piping bag. It's more the angle I want to show you how to do this. So I'm just going to fill up a piping bag with some chocolate. Again, this is dark chocolate, but I could use white chocolate. I'm going to take the end off. So when you pipe something like this, okay, you don't want to pipe it straight down from here, because you do this and all you're going to do is it's going to start creating air pockets on the side. So what you need to do is angle the tube and then start piping in the chocolate. And you'll see it will slowly go down, and then it's going to work its way back again from the bottom all the way back, and then you won't get any air bubbles in the tube.
Mark, in your opinion, what's the greatest showpiece you've ever made?
Me?
Yeah.
There's been so many. I think probably that, you know, the best one I've done is when I did the Chocolate Masters.
I love that
For the, it was a long time ago. Was it haute couture?
Yeah.
Yeah, haute couture design. So I did a Louis XIV dresser with a green marble top to it. The green marble is so thin on the top. And then I had this sculptured dress fabric coming down with needles and pins and things like that on it. And I had a floor, so I did the wooden floor of the studio with bricks holding it all up and things like that. So that was probably one of the best pieces. But I've done like a 4-foot long Viking longboat with truffles in for an opening of a hotel. I've done a massive, great big stiletto shoe for a Sex and the City party. So yeah, loads of different ones. But yeah, I think probably the Chocolate Masters ones, because again, with the competition, you're representing your country, and nothing more prouder than that to do a showpiece for. As you can see now, we've got and it's quite good with the clear tubes as well, because you don't have any, you can see, sorry, obviously, if you've got any air bubbles in there. If you do have air bubbles, then just give it a little tap like this. But just remember, you've got cling film here. And if you start tearing this, it's starting to come out. But if you have your freeze spray ready, you can start freezing it if it starts leaking, okay? And then just pop that, leave that to set, and then pop that in the fridge. And then literally, if it's tempered and you've tempered it right, it should literally just push out, okay? So you end up something like, it's gonna pop that in there, sorry. So you end up with, it's a little bit grubby, but you end up with a tube of chocolate like this, okay? So again, what you can do with this is we can use the knife. Just be careful when you're using the knife to make, so we're going to do the graining effect again on this. Okay, and just bring this all the way down, and then we can smooth this as well, and then you've got, your grain effects, and just continue with that. So what I've got here, guys, is I've got 4 different thicknesses of my wood grain effect. And then all I've done is just a little bit like the black one. I've just brushed a little bit of like mocha color cocoa butter on there as well, just to give it a little more depth. But you can see you can use lots of different tubes to make lots of different structural pieces, and use that at the end for our showpiece, okay? So for the last structural piece, we're going to use some card and just a bit of chocolate. So we can make a former with some card. So some thin strips of card, not really thin card. You want a little bit of weight behind it, but you need a little bit of structure as well. So very simple way of doing this is we're going to pour some chocolate onto it. Now you might want to do a particular design. So that's good. So what I would do is have your design, I would cut it out. So you've got your structural piece. So what basically we're forming is a piece like this. So I want to form like it, almost like a curve like this on my paper. I mean, I'm just going to do it freehand, but you can do it with an actual cutout of the structure you need. Now, I just make sure that I've got chocolate on here that you can pour on. I'm going to do this on a tray because I'm going to get this off. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to work my way down with some tempered chocolate. So I'm not putting too much on, but enough to get the size I need. So, and then I'm going to let that set slightly, because if you start doing it now, it's just going to ping the card out. So let that set, and then we're going to use the card just freehand, and I'm just going to give them sort of a little bit of a curve in there like that, and having a point at the top and then more of a square edge at the bottom. So I don't think it's going to work. It's not too bad. But I would definitely set it a little bit more. It might start pinging back. Just going to fold up that in there. Like so, okay? So what you would do is wait for that to set and it's nicely formed, and then you literally just fill it out with more chocolate. Really simple. Fill it all the way to the thickness you need. Again, if you want, use some callets in your chocolate and then sort of pipe that in or ladle that in with the little callets, and it'll make it a lot stronger. Okay, so then when that's set, we have a form just like this. So then we can just literally pull the paper off, and then we need a little bit of work on this now to bring this to the right shape. Always good to work on a tray or something like that. And then we're going to use one of these wood tools. This is the wood sort of like carving tools. Okay, you can get this from DIY shops quite easily. And it's a bit like a grater. It's very sharp, so be careful. But you just bring it towards yourself. And I'm just smoothing out all those edges. Oh. So you be careful with it if you've got a very thin end as well when you move it around. Work on sort of both sides of it, because I want it sort of more of a point at the top. You can see I'm getting that more pointed this side, so I need to do the same the other side. So these are very small showpieces. They're nothing too massive, but obviously it's very easy to replicate all the techniques I've done into larger pieces as well.
Mark, we have another good question. If we accidentally break it, what should we do?
So if you break it, all you need to do is, again, like I did, heat both sides of the broken pieces and then a little bit of tempered chocolate in there. Let it set, give it a good sort of few minutes, probably half hour or something to properly set, then you can come back to it. But just remember, on something like this, you're going to have always that weak point where you broke it. So it might always break again. So just be really careful when you're working around it. Because if I start doing this where I broke it here, then it's just going to maybe break again. Okay, so be really careful. But you can smooth it out. You know, I stick it together so that the chocolate's oozing out the edges, so I know I've got it right to the edges. Let that set. Then you can take your knife and then you can start carving it as well. So keep Are you all right? Okay. So keep. You can always, you know, I'm not going to go too far with this because it's boring watching me just do this. So, but you can make it purely cylindrical around that as well, or you can have it more.
It's great because you can get a really natural looking piece, can't you?
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be sort of pointed. It can be more structured piece as well. Things like that.
No, it's just somebody said there was some buffering, so we're seeing if we can unplug anything.
Oh, okay.
But we can't.
You can't. Sorry. I'll start using something in a minute. Like, Claire, what are you doing? But as soon as I finish with something, guys, I'll try and get it. Okay, so you can just do that. And then, you know, you can clear up this area. And then you need to smooth it now again. So you want to get that nice and smooth.
2 questions, Mark. First one, what year did Mark win the Chocolate Masters?
Well, I've done it twice. I've done 2006 to 2007. So I won in 2006 the UK heats, and then went to the 2007 World Chocolate Masters. And then I stupidly and enough did it again the following year after that. So I did it again in 2008 and then went to the World Finals in 2009. And in 2009, I was 7th best in the world.
Very good.
With my showpiece coming 4th, which I was really pleased with. So, yeah.
And how heavy can moulded temperature chocolate get?
How you can,
I suppose the showpiece.
oh God, you can talk 50, 60. I mean, some of the ones at Chocolate Masters could be even 100 kilos.
Yeah.
You know, you never know. Yeah, it can be anything, but they can be as big as you want them to be. If you've got.
That's always the worst bit, when people have to move their showpieces and they're so heavy and they've only just been stuck together, so they're not very strong yet.
Yeah, so it's really, you know, a shame when you see these people that have worked so much on their showpieces and then they, like Julie just said, trying to move them, and then it just completely collapses in front of your eyes. But that's why you have to think about the structure as well of a showpiece. So you don't want things at the top to be too heavy, but it's really good if you can show things at the top looking heavy, but then being really light. So if I had a massive, great big sphere on the top, but I had it really, really uber thin, it looks amazing because it looks like it's solid up there, but actually it's really thin. If I had a solid one up there, it just literally would fall and break. So yeah, you have to be careful with the weight.
I think we should tell you the next comment.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. I don't know the comment, but
Not to make
I'm not
Mark
sure if
feel
I.
old, but I was 5 in 2006.
Oh God. 5. God, I do feel old now. Thanks, Holly. Okay, so once we've done that, we've got that all smooth and stuff. Just another technique we can do for the finishing bit, because I just want to do different ways of finishing it off. I could coat that with the black cocoa butter or coloured cocoa butter, and I could use the polish and polish that up. I could carve that and do the wood grain effect. I could leave it just like this. You might find, obviously, with the rubbing, you're going to get some blooming on there, so you've got to be careful. Or I could spray it. Fortunately, I can't show you spraying today because we're in a room where we can't do it because of our air conditioning and stuff. But I want to show you another technique of getting a little bit of a design on this. I've already done it this side, but I'm not going to show you till I've done the other.
So, Mark, how long does it take you to, like design and then execute the piece?
Oh gosh, well, a showpiece for like Chocolate Masters can take you months and months of work, research, planning. You might build. For me, I'm not very good at drawing showpieces. I know what I need to do. So I like to build sort of the structure, and I build several different structures till I get, so very rough, but it's more about the shape. I can see something more in a 3D looking than I can in 2D. Okay, so I always start to build sort of like elements and shapes and things like that to get the structure I want. And then I like, okay, that one's going to be put to the side, going and going. And you just, as much time as you had, I was very lucky that I had a whole year to practice, because the UK was usually one of the first countries to do their sort of regional finals. So I was very lucky to have that amount of time to work on my piece. But again, I look back at it now and it could be better. It's always developing all the time on things like that. Okay, so we've got the hot plate on, we've got it nice and hot. and we're going to melt this side. So we're going to give it a little bit of time on there to make it nice and wet. And then we're going to hold it straight up. So we're going to get the suction and going to get the design. So if I pull it up now, you can feel the nice structure, and then you can see this design on the piece. Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of a suction shine there. Okay, so I've done the other side already, so you can see that one's now dried. So even this is on a hot plate, it's dried quite well. Okay, it hasn't bloomed too much, but I am going to finish this up. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this off because it's going to take too long to dry. So I'm just going to take that off. So again, I could spray this, or I can just use a dust color, which I'm going to do today. So this is a bit of our IBC creative design. And the good thing is you don't need that much on a piece like this. And that's all you need to do. So that will take any sort of like bloomed areas. We'll get rid of that.
Sorry,
Okay, there you go. So there you can see that now. So you see it's a nice, almost like veiny sort of look to it as well. Okay. So I'm going to pop that to one side and we'll come back to that one in a sec. So that's all our structural pieces, guys. So now we're going to go on to some petals. Okay, so what I want to show you first is some power flowers. So these are power flowers. Let me introduce you to these. So you get 4 different colors. So you get yellow, red, white, and blue. And from these 4 colors, you can create any sort of color under the sun. So you see, you got like almost like a Dulux color chart thing here. So say I wanted to make a nice orange. I've got these color oranges I can do. So I can count, and it tells me exactly how much chocolate, so white chocolate obviously, and how much of the power flowers I need. So if I go for this orange one here, I'm going to do half a recipe because the recipe is 400 grams of white chocolate, it says on here, and it says 8 of the yellow and a half of a red. So let's just pop in. So I'm going to do half. So 4 of the little power flowers, you see they're like little flowers, hence the name power flower. And you see on the flower, we can actually cut them as well. So it said a half on that recipe, so I need a quarter. So I need just 1 little petal in that bowl, okay? So these are really good for colouring cocoa butters. They're good for colouring macaroons, buttercream, baked products. Basically anything you want to colour, it will colour. So I'm going to take that now and I'm going to pop it into the microwave. Which I might need to turn on. So I'm sorry, there may be a slight bit of buffing, but maybe not.
Have you got any tips for beginners, Mark?
Where would you start?
By following these things on the video.
So where do you start? I mean, I started by just doing research and looking at different people's showpieces and things, seeing what people can do, you know, trying to learn as well how things are done. So this is really good. So hopefully you've learned a little bit from this, that you can go and actually start making a showpiece, or even just having a go at one of the flowers. You don't have to build a showpiece, just, you know, have a go at making, you know, one of the platforms or something like that, which is really good. So when we melt the power flowers, they don't sometimes actually melt like you think chocolate would melt. They sort of hold their structure. So it's basically colour and cocoa butter in there. And then all we do is make sure that they're melted, and we're going to mix in. This is a really good way as well of having consistency in the color. So if you want the same color time and time again, it's very easy to use the power flowers. So you can actually count exactly how much you've got. So if you see that, you see the colors now melted in there. So now we can, so just make sure that is melted. Just don't change the spatula you're using, because that's got a lot of the color on it. And then I've just grabbed some white chocolate. If you're looking for more of a natural range, we do a natural range of the colors as well now. And then you literally just mix that through. You've got that nice color coming through. So don't worry that the power flowers are hot. They're not going to be hot enough to ruin the temper of the. This white chocolate is a little bit cold, so I'm just going to give it a little heat up. I'll just turn that off, if that helps. And then what I'm going to do is pop it into a cup, and then we can start our first petal. So I'm using this little table here, just so it's easier for you to see. Usually what I do is do it on the edge of my table. So I've got strips of acetate here. I'm literally going to bring to the edge of this tray, okay? But normally I do it on the edge of my table, but for you guys to see better, I'm doing it here. I'm just going to give my surface a little bit of grease. So this is just a baking spray. You can use a little bit of olive oil. Just make sure it's a tiny bit. Just take a little bit of that off. It's not too much. Or you can use a little bit of water. So it basically just sticks down that acetate like so. Now I'm just going to explain how I'm going to do this, because it's easier to explain first than obviously to do it. I've got a little bit of guttering here as well, which is going to use for my purposes. So I'm going to dip the knife first. I'm going to bring it out. I'm going to tap once that way, not that way, just to take a little bit off. Not tapping, just one little tap. Take off one side. Then I'm going to come down, reversing the chocolate onto this, down, up, and back. Again, we'll make sure we get the top view on this, because it's a little bit easier to see. So dip, up, tap, back, down. Just touch the surface all the way along, up, and then back. So you see we get that nice sort of vein look down the middle. So tap. I'm going to take a little bit too much grease. I'm just going to hold that down. Okay, and just keep going. Now, you can do a long strip like this, but if you're taking your time to do it, then you might want to do like half a strip, so you do like 4 or 5 petals, because they are going to start to cool down and start to set, but we want to have a little bit of a curve in there. So
could you do this on grease-proof paper as well?
Yeah, you could do some grease-proof paper. You're not going to get the shine on the other side, but you can use grease-proof paper like so. And then when they're done like that, then we just use the guttering, and then we can just pop them in the guttering like that. We can pile them up, but have a few sort of length of guttering where you can put them in, and then once they've dried, you can sort of stack them up as well. And then a little bit of time in the fridge to set. For an average flower, nice big full flower, I would say you probably need about 12 length, about that. So 12, roughly 8 to 10 petals per length. Okay, so that's one of them. No. So another one is using the same acetate. We need smaller piping bags. I've got smaller bits of acetate this time, so more of a longer drop I need on this. And then a plastic sheet, a plastic tray, something like that, nice and flat. So again, I'm going to stick these down onto the surface. And I'm going to do 2 sheets at a time with 2 petals. So again, I'm going to grab a little bit of chocolate. Starting to come out. Okay, so we have a down look shot again, Claire. That's it. So you can just about see the edge of the acetate, the 2 sheets here. So up the top here, what I'm going to do is pipe a sort of a 5p piece, but you can do it sort of bigger or smaller. Make sure it's nice and round-ish. Then take your knife and we're just going to cut through to make a point. And then I'm going to turn this round so you can see that you're going to go like this. So up nice and straight. Give it a little tap and you see where it drips down. And that's what we're looking for, our other petal. So remove them from here. And then we can place them in our piece of guttering as well to give it a little bit of movement to it. Okay, so that's the next one. Let me just do one more of those so you can see that again. So pipe. I'm doing this backwards so you can see it a bit better. Like that, like that. And then Claire, if we go to that front view again, so they can see that. There you go. Okay, I only do 2 at a time because if I did a row of 6, 8, you're going to find they're going to set and they're not going to go the same length. Okay, so always do a couple at a time and you'll get it a lot better. Okay, so that's the next petal. And then the final one. We're going to do a big sheet. So actually I'm going to do half a sheet.
What, do you use the golden ratio when you make a showpiece?
Golden ratio. What have I used gold on?
No. Like, I think it's more about the structure, you know, like 1/3 base, 1/3 whatever.
Oh God, it doesn't matter. You know, it's whatever structure you want to make really. It's always mainly a base, and there's always mainly a structural piece in the center, and then you've got elements that go on that as well. But these days, that's a very classic showpiece. But these days, there's lots of different ways that people do showpieces.
I think you've also got to always think about where you want the eye to be, haven't you?
Yeah, it's always, you've got to look at flow as well. So, you know, straight up is quite good, but you need focal points to take you up the showpiece. So you want it sort of larger down here or larger at the top and it flows that way. But you want elements going up, but almost getting smaller or bigger to smaller down as well. So that, you know, so you get a better structure to it. So a little bit of acetate, and then we're just going to put some white chocolate on here. But again, this could be coloured chocolate. I've done some coloured ones, but just to show you the technique. So I'm just going to spread this over the whole thing. Okay. Just pull this up out of the way. Get rid of the excess. And then I've got a knife here, and I've also got a ruler. So I need to let this dry, semi-dry, so it goes from that wet to more of that matte finish, and then I'm ready to cut. So when I cut, what I'm going to do is cut with a knife, but just cutting the surface of the chocolate. I don't want to cut all the way down through that acetate. Okay, so just literally the surface. And we're ready to go. Nothing, just waiting. Sorry, just waiting. Do-do-do, do-do-do. It's not on anyway. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I can just see it's just starting to set, but obviously what you don't want to do is start putting this on because we're going to cut using the ruler. Okay, so another thing we're going to do is make some shards. So I'll show you the little sort of shards we're going to do. So this is literally like sort of a pencil of chocolate, but it's making a paste for it first. So I can start that off while we're waiting for this. So in my Thermomix here, but you could use another type of processor. It needs to be sort of more of a processor. I've already chopped up some chocolate. So you can see there, that's just literally the dark chocolate callets that have been chopped up. So it's good to chop them up because if you chop it all in one go, you can untemper the chocolate. So if you chop them up into small pieces, let that rest, and then you can continue. So basically, I'm going to put this on. Just going to check this first. Tiny bit longer. So it's going to make a little bit of noise, guys. So you might want to type again in a second. But what I'm going to do, just say what I'm going to do. I'm making it into a paste. So literally the heat of the blades, there's no heat in there, but the friction of the blades is going to melt that chocolate just very slightly and make it into a paste. Okay, so for this one is now set. So I'm going to start the cut. So always use a ruler that's the right size. All the way along. And then you want to go on an angle to make sort of almost diamond shapes. You've got to work fairly quick with this because it's going to start to set already. Okay, then I'm going to put a little bit of tissue paper on the top. I'm going to put it on a slight angle, my rolling pin, and then I'm going to roll that up. And then we're going to remove the rolling pin, and then we're going to pop that into a fridge to set, setting it like that. So you might want to put a little bit of sellotape on there or something like that, and that will keep it all together. And that's going to be our other petal. So let's have a quick clear down. So still going in here. I'm going to turn it up a bit. Needs a little bit longer. Sorry if it's noisy. It's starting to come together now. Here it now is coming into a pace, it's forming, it gets a little bit quieter. So let's have a quick look at this. Now you can see you've got a paste. So what we can do is we can roll this. So I always roll it into the rough shape, and then very quickly I use a flat surface with a slight angle on it, so I get that sharper pointy end. You've got to work pretty quick, guys, and then once you've got it done, then you can form it into a little shape, like so. Okay, and then we can cut off the end. But if this starts to firm up, because it will firm up very quickly, just literally put the lid back on, turn it back on, just go. Couple of turns. Don't break your Thermomix at the same time. I have got a little bit too much paste in it. It's always good to have a tiny bit, sort of like a good handful at a time, okay? You only need tiny bits. And again, we can roll it. But I like using this as well for almost like clay, like we were talking about earlier on, so I can make a structure from this. So things like making like a 3D tree or things like that is a really good way. And the reason why I'm working on a piece of plastic is the marble dark chocolate sets very, very quickly. And so a lot of people have problems with it because it's set to crack. So if you work on more of a neutral surface, it's a lot better, okay? So you'll see after a while, it becomes very stiff, and then you can hold them up and then use them on a showpiece. We've got some here already made. We'll put those. Yeah. Just like that. So you can go too far with it and it'll end up melting it and making it into like chocolate soup. Okay, but it's starting to get a bit firm now. So it need a bit more blitzing. But then you can, you know, like I was saying about modeling, you could start to make a structure. You know, if I was going to make a tree, then I could, you know, keep adding to it. If I was making a very tall tree, I'd use a piece of chocolate that through one of those pipes and then build around it so it's got a bit of structure, and then you can smooth it, you can scrape it, and you can make it as tall as you like as well. Okay, so it's really good stuff to use.
People make massive structures out of that, Mark, don't they? Like
yeah, I've seen like almost life-size figures, isn't there?
Yeah,
Life-size
like
humans and stuff. Yeah. So it's a really good thing to have a go at. But I'm going to say this, you know, just be careful with the blender you're going to use, because I've had blenders break on me when there have been a slightly cheaper version of a blender, so, or a food processor. So just be careful. Okay, so we're nearly ready to start building, guys, which I am going to start now, I think. Right, so I'm going to build it in bits to leave it a little bit, give it a little bit of time to set. So I'm going to put the feet on this one first. So I'm going to turn it over. Obviously, I can use that side. So we're going to use heat gun just to heat it up. And a bit of tempered chocolate. So pop a bit of chocolate on. Of course. So leave it like that for a minute or so. Sorry, I just came over. We can give it a little freeze spray anyway. But you don't have to use the freeze, you can just let that dry naturally. But we can freeze spray it so it dries very quickly. And then we can turn it over. Now, the thing I'm doing wrong here is I'm not using gloves. Because I should be, which I will. Because what you can do is you get lots of fingerprints and lots of marks. Good work. So now I'm going to place my larger piece on. We did earlier, so that larger piece. So again, it's always good to obviously look at the form and see how you want it to sit and where you want it to stand. Okay. So I'm just going to go slightly off center because I want to build the flower quite low down here so people see the top. So again, a little bit of chocolate. The turntables are good because obviously you can look all the way around, or you get someone to look for you to make sure that's nice and straight. Because what you don't want it to do is leaning right over like this way because it's going to be very unstable. Okay. So I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. I'm just going to move that one off to the side. So if you find it's wonky, this one isn't, which is good, then you can go back on the hot plate and then just smooth it off slightly on there. So I've got my other base and my wood base, and I've got my pieces here. So I'm starting with my thicker piece. There's all, sometimes you need to put them all together on there and hold it to see where you want it to go, which I already know that because I've done that earlier on. So but it's going to go right up against sort of that one as well. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to give it a little bit of freeze spray. And just check it's okay.
Mark, have you ever tried to work out the cost of a showpiece with everything that you're doing at the moment?
It's such a difficult thing to work out when you do showpieces. Trying to cost it out. It's not obvious. A lot of the time, it's the cost of the chocolate. It's your time that you're taking to do it. So you've got to work out an hourly rate, and obviously then you've got to obviously consider that in. So it's very difficult, very, very difficult to do that. So I'm going to put that one on the front, which will look good. But again, with a structure like this, you probably could sort of put a bit of chocolate down in between the seams or in between so you can hide it, so it'll become a lot more stable, especially if you're going to move it as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one. Leave that one off. And then our last one this one. So I've already given this a little bit of a edge there. I got into the shape, smooth it out, get it to the right angle, and then you're ready to fit it on. Chocolate's setting a bit. Okay, so this is where things can always go wrong or break. Okay, so let's start building our flowers. So let me just explain what I'm going to use for our flowers. So when we build a flower, we need a former to work from. Okay, so tend to use 3 sort of half spheres. They're hollow, but they can be solid, or at least one of them could be solid, like sort of the bottom base one. And then we're going to put 2 together to make a solid sphere. Okay, so again, just use the hot plate. And just warm that up slightly. But this is what we're trying to achieve, like a little bud. Sorry, I haven't cleaned it off.
Messy mark.
Messy mark. And I'm going to grab a bit more chocolate to show you something else.
We've got a good question for you, Mark.
A good question.
Good question. What's the best way to store the showpieces when they're complete to prevent any blooming?
Well, in the right temperature conditions, obviously. Showpieces can last for years and years and years. Just make sure it's not in direct sunlight, because in direct sunlight, even from inside, even the winter sun can melt the showpiece. So keep it at sort of a constant temperature around about 20 degrees, 18, 19, 20 degrees. And then, you can sort of put it into a cabinet or something like that, and that will hold the chocolate better, and obviously stop all the dust and things like that getting onto it as well. So 2 half spheres together. And then I'm going to melt down a little bit of that half sphere to make a little hole. Like so. And then I'm just going to dip that into a bit of white chocolate. So I've got more structure there. And then that's going to go onto the former like that. And then I can smooth that chocolate around. Okay, and then just leave that to set. One of the designs I'm going to do, which I've done, which I'll show you here for one of the flowers, is this. So it's got like a little peak on the top. So you can see like that. Okay. So all I've done with that is I've taken my bud and I've dipped it in some white chocolate, or in case that's dark chocolate, and then just let it drip off. And you need to hold it until basically it starts to set, and then you'll have that nice little peak on it, like that. Okay, so you can hand it to someone, or you can just hold it. It doesn't take long to set if in the right conditions. Okay, that's that one. The other one, one of the other ones I've done is stippled the top with just some more chocolate and a brush, and then just put a little bit of silver dust onto it just to make it a bit more sort of glittery there. Okay, so that's our 2 that we're going to use. That one, that one's for that one. Okay, so let's start building these flowers. Everybody ready, are they?
Yeah, they're all enjoying it.
So I'm going to build this one first. So you see how, obviously I have worked towards myself for the flower, but I will keep showing you it. We'll show you from the other cameras as well, but I'll try and show the best I can how to stick it together. First of all, I'm going to make sure I get it into the right position. So I think I'm going to go down about here with my flower. Okay, this one I'm going to use the purple ones. Obviously I did white ones, but this is the ones that we did on that sheet, and then we rolled it up, cut them into diamonds, and then we rolled it up. Okay, so that's what we've got, and that's going to be our petals around. So first of all, I need to stick this on. So I just get it into the right place. So just give it a little move so I can mark it on the showpiece here, so I know exactly where I'm going. I'll have to get some more dark chocolate. G, grab me some more dark chocolate. Okay, so let's try and, so I'm going to pipe a little bit of chocolate on here, a little bit of chocolate on there. It does make it a little bit messy now and again when you're trying to stick, but then you can always clean it up afterwards, but the petals will hide it as well. So I'm just going to hold it there while I spray. Actually, I just realised I need to come down a bit. You've got to think as well, which I just forgot then, of how the petals are going to form around it. So I needed to bring it down slightly. Okay, like that. So I got enough space around the flower to start building. So it's very easy to unravel. Thank you. And then for the first ones, if I'm going to just try and show you this one, I'm going to bring them on slight angle. So sometimes they're a little bit too long here to begin with, so I'm just going to break off the ends. I'm going to put, oh, that was a little bit too much chocolate. A little bit of chocolate. And then I'm going to pop it in like so, okay? And you just keep going around one after the other.
So how much cool spray should you use, Mark?
Well, for this one, it's not so bad because it's not too much petal-wise. But because what happens is, if you use too much spray, it starts to cool the actual bud bit down too much. And then what happens is you try and put chocolate on and then you try and stick your petal, it just literally falls off. Okay, so there is, you know, you need to use enough, but then obviously not too much. So what I would do is just leave it to come back to room temperature, and then you can start again, okay? Because it's just got too much moisture around. If you find you've got it in the wrong place, which I did with that one, I'm not going to use that petal again because it's already frozen on this part here. So I'm going to use another one. I'm just giving it a bit of a push on underneath. I'll show you in a minute, guys. I'm just going round and round, one to the other. Okay, so you see it starting to form around. So once you've got so many on, I can continue with some more. I'm just going to grab another bag. So I am rushing it a bit, guys, obviously to get it done, and I'm not making excuses for myself. It's not gonna... I know that's all you'll be thinking. So I'm going to go sort of like in between now. But don't be frightened if they start falling off, like things will fall off. You know, just stay with it. It's about getting up underneath it to actually start forming it. Sorry guys, I've just been a bit silent.
Well, there's a question for you. Could you do as many flowers as you'd like? But obviously the downside is it's time. But is it possible to do too much?
Yeah, you can put too much onto a piece, most definitely. You can, you know, flowers are nice if you do a nice big flower, you know, or do 3 different, you know, 1 big one and then 2 more like bud type flowers as well with it, you know. I could do 3 flowers on here, not a little bit smaller, and you know maybe do that, but then that's probably getting a little bit too much as well. So yeah, you can always do too much. You know, doing it
too busy.
don't want it too busy, and you want it to keep it clean, tidy, and you know actually what you can see is what you're getting, sort of thing. So I'll just do a few more on this, guys, and then we'll move on. But you can obviously spend a lot more time filling them up.
Could you make them beforehand and then put them on the showpiece?
You can start them off, but it's very difficult to try and put that on a showpiece without breaking it all. So you could do the first wave around and then put it on, then finish it. Me personally, I prefer to put it onto a piece and build it from there, because you can see how it's forming on there as well, and the look of how it's, you know, basically looking. That's going to give you good results. Sometimes you need 10 pairs of fingers for this. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple more on just to even it out slightly. It is also knowing when to stop as well. As I said, I keep putting more on and like, oh, just put another one on.
I bet this is hard to do on competitions when your hands are shaking as well.
Yeah, Yeah, I built several of these flowers on my pieces. So yeah, you've got to be really, really careful.
And so when you're picking up the petals, where do you hold them?
Well, again, like I say, my hands are really hot, so I try and hold them like on the sides and just very, very lightly. I'm almost not touching them. I'm still breaking that little piece off to give me a little bit of, because if you hold them from the middles, it can break off slightly. Too much as well. Right, so it's going to be the last one. Or not.
You've said that about 3 times.
I know. Everybody's going, this is boring. Oh, see, I'm just... So tweezers sometimes are good for this, which I haven't got, and that one's just now fallen.
Okay, another good question. So for the World Chocolate Masters, like you're allowed to take bits that are sort of made previously, but what percentage has to be done at the event?
So for the showpiece, you can have all the elements made, but if it's a flower, you can take it along like this, but you're not allowed to have it already pre-built. Okay, so you have to have it all in pieces. If it's a structure like this would all have to be in elements because you've made them all separately. If this was a mold, one silicon mold, then that's fine because you've made it in one solid piece. But if it is separate pieces, then obviously it has to be built at the competition like that. And the judges will ask to see the molds as well. So you've always got to take all the molds along that you've used for that showpiece.
So we were finding that people were making bigger and bigger silicone molds and spending lots and lots of money on making the molds. So that's why for the next World Chocolate Masters, we've totally changed the showpiece and it's much smaller so that it's not all about the molds anymore. It's more about the techniques again.
And it's not all about using as much chocolate as possible.
Yeah.
It's about you can still make a nice showpiece, small and elegant. It doesn't have to be massive as well. Okay, sorry, I didn't really show you that, did I? Sorry. So that's that first one. Okay, I mean, you can angle them differently, you can move them all around, but I'm doing it very rushed anyway because obviously time's not on our scale. So next one is. I don't remember which one was it.
Paul was just saying it's amazing to see it in real time and show, the effort that goes into it and the patience that you have to have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about patience. Gosh.
And giving yourself time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to give yourself a lot of time and do it in stages as well. If you've got the time to do it in stages, then just do it in stages. You don't have to do it all in one day. It's better if you leave things to set, to rest, and then obviously you can, do it later.
Would you consider yourself a perfectionist, Mark?
Probably. I mean, I think one good thing is that if you look at a showpiece and you can always see improvements in it, I think that's a good thing. I've never said one of my pieces is fantastic. There's nothing else you can do with it. There's always elements that will need changing. If you go back and look at my first showpiece I did for the World Chocolate Masters, it was absolutely awful. And I don't even show people pictures of it anymore because it was that bad. But that's because back then it was a very different time. This is very different now. We've got a lot more, social media and more people doing showpieces and stuff.
And people can see the skills, can't they? They can watch them on social media.
Yeah, so you can see a lot more. You can learn a lot more, most definitely.
Whereas way back then, Mark, was social media around?
Way back when, was it Emily was 3 or something like that? Yeah, I don't think there wasn't social media around. So how did we research things? Books, library. We used to buy books that people had done on showpieces, things like that. Or we went on classes. We went on showpiece classes, things like that. Okay, so I've just put that one on. So I've just stuck that one on. So that's the one with the little pointer, and that's the one I'm going to use, these ones. And they're going to go round the back of it, like so. Okay, so you're seeing more of that nice bud there. So this time I'm going to do a bit of dipping instead of piping.
Have you ever had a showpiece break on you during an event?
Yes, I have. Oh, it was the first heat of the Chocolate Masters in 2006. It was a really hot day. We were driving the showpiece to the Olympia where it was being held, and I had my structural piece in the front with me, with my friend. We were sitting. It was in the middle of us in this lorry, and we took all the back of the lorry out, everything, all the equipment I needed, and then we forgot about this piece, but it was sitting in the sun through the window. So the whole structural piece, like this, literally just fell in the box. So yeah. And then at that point, I was like,
I'm going home.
no, actually, I was like, oh, what will happen will happen. You know, if I don't get through, I'll just stuck my finger out. If I don't win, I don't win. It's fine. I've had a go. You know, it's all about having an experience. And even with that, and even being my showpiece was smaller than what the competition needed, I still won. So it was all right. So just turn this around. So I've done 2 opposite each other, and then I'm going to do another 2 there, and then another 2 there. So I've got 6 on the first round. If you get the opportunity to do a competition, then I would definitely have a go at it. It's always good experience. I mean, the first one I did when I was at college, I took it and I was really, really pleased with it. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then when I went to Hotel Olympia, it was the worst thing I'd ever seen compared to the other guys that were there. But it's just an experience, then you learn from that, you know. So you see what people are doing, you learn how to do, you know, different techniques.
I think with social media, people see it and think it's easy.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to remember the time and practice those people have put into it to make it look easy.
Yeah.
So when you do it, you shouldn't be upset if it feels difficult.
No. I didn't really feel, I wouldn't say upset about it. I was more shocked of the standard that was there at the competition. So that was more the shock. I was like, because I'd never been to one before, I just had done it. So it was sort of pleased in a way that I had done it and stuff, but, you know, I was shocked with the standard, you know, back in the days when Emily was only probably not even on this planet. So I'm just going round again. So going in between those ones now. For this one, you don't need so many. That's quite good because they are quite fiddly, these ones. But you can build them as big as you like. It's all about trying to hold them very, very lightly so you don't break them. I'm just going on the last round now, guys.
You sure?
I'm sure this time. Just tap my finger again. Be careful with this freeze spray as well, because you can burn yourself with it, so be very careful. Last two.
He's gonna like pretend that one didn't fall off.
Yeah. They all fall off, guys, now and again. But just obviously, don't panic. Just leave it. You might have used a bit too much spray, so I'll just try it again. If it doesn't stick, then it will have to go on again in a bit. It doesn't help. The turntable is so light. The only reason I'm using a so I've just broken another one now. The only reason I'm using turntable is a lot easier to show you guys. Let me just try and get that one back in, and then I'm done. Done. So there's that one. Okay, so not much colour on it, but you can put colour on it. You can make them purple. You can do different colours and stuff on there as well. But that looks quite nice on there, guys, as well. Okay. So on to the last one now. So we've got our white one. I'm going to do this nice and low. Yeah, it's fine. So a bit of chocolate. Obviously, I'm using a white one for this one. Let's try and get a bit of chocolate now. Into there, we're going to use some of these on it two guides to make it sort of a little bit taller. So I'll just pop these here ready. And this time I'm going to go with a bit of white chocolate. And then I've got all my petals here. So this one we're going to start to build actually on the face of the sphere. So first of all, what I do is I do 3 in the middle, so they're all cupped together, but you've got like almost like a pyramid, a triangle. So let's take 3 good ones. So I'll move this around so you can see in a second, guys.
He's just trying to make you jump.
Competition standards.
Competition standard, yeah. That's not quite. I'm just going to move that off a minute. Okay, so you can see I've got 3 in a pyramid there. And then I sort of go in between those 3 to cover the gaps. And I go right underneath, so butt it right right underneath it.
Mark, how did you start your career in chocolate?
Well, I've always sort of been a pastry chef, so always sort of like done chocolate work through my career. I'll just show you that one. So that's the 3 in between those first 3. And then we just go back and carry on. But then just had a real passion for it. Like, was finding it really interesting, the whole, the whole growing part of it, the whole production part of it, the whole history of it as well, which I found quite fascinating. And and then just grew from there. And then I had the opportunity to work for a chocolate company, which I did for a while. Then I went back into pastry. But it's always good to know pastry as well, because it helps you in the chocolate industry, obviously, especially with like combinations of flavors and things like that. It works really well. Okay, and then I just go in. So let's look at the triangle. Then I go in between and in between now. So just continue building it round. I hope you guys are going to continue your careers like that as well. And, even I say now, there's always something still to learn. We never stop learning, which is really good for this industry. It's a great industry to be in. I know it's been a bit of a challenge so far, but, but we'll get through it, and it will be great again, as it always has been. Sorry, I have to move it off. I can turn this one a lot easier anyway, guys. This one I'm just like placing my fingers at the back just to hold them in place. And then they're a lot easier to don't melt, because obviously they're melting a little bit because they're so delicate and they're so thin. But you can do this type of petal, but you can do it with like a palette knife. So if you want more of a rounded finish to your petals, that's another way of doing it. And there are a lot more tools out there now that you can do different shapes. But this is very classic with just the knife. Froze my finger. Back.
End up with freezer burn.
Yeah, done it again. All right, we're getting there. Let's just show you so far. So I'm angling it that way, so it's up slightly for the showpiece. It's a little bit. So there's quite a lot of petals here, so we can actually bring it all the way back round there, but I won't finish it too much because obviously it's going to take a bit too much time, but you can build it quite a lot. That's why I said this one you needed like, what was it, about 12 sheets of about 10 or so, 8 to 10 petals per sheet. So you can make a really nice full flower. What you got to remember as well is, when you've done the flower and you want to put more things on there, you've got to be very careful because you don't want to break anything and let anything drop down. Like the sticks we've got still to go on. So I'll just do a couple more, guys, but obviously I would do more. But you could do a combination of all these elements that we've done today. So I'll finish that for now, guys. So that's sort of the flower. You know, you would come down more here, fill it in more. You can really bring it down and make a huge, great flower. But we're just going to finish this with some of these little sticks. I'll just grab a little bit of chocolate. So these little sticks are very good for finishing off showpieces. So I've done it sort of in the angle of the piece. So be careful what I said, it goes back to being slightly defrosted before it fully sets. Usually when you turn away, it falls off, so be careful. But if you've got quite a lot of chocolate there, you can hide it with another one. Just put that one on there. Trying to hide almost all the seams on there as well, if you see that, okay? You can always come down in reverse as well, so you can always come down like this way from the back. So I'll just put a couple of these on. And these are really good to get that. You remember that flow I was talking about, getting the flow. And me and Julie were talking about getting the flow on a showpiece. These can make it flow a lot better as well. So, you know, have a go with that. One more.
Are you sure?
Yes. So.
Yay.
Okay. Let's just clean this away, and then I'll put them all on the front, and then you can. Do we have any more questions, guys?
No, they're all saying thank you, and
No problem.
it's been amazing.
No problem.
They've loved what you're doing, and you're very talented.
Oh, thank you very much. So are you, I'm sure. Just work at it. You know, have a little practice, all of them, and yeah, anybody can do it. Just practice and time, and research. Look at sort of Instagram, Facebook, all of that. Look at people, follow people, and you see people designing new flowers all the time. You know, sometimes they show you how to do it, or you can work it out how they do it as well. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching. Remember, tomorrow we've got a trends presentation with Julie and Claire. So remember that. That's going to be really exciting. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot, and now you can go off and practice.
Yes.
Thanks very much, guys.
See you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.